Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Life can be challenging at times. You're cruising down the road of life. It can make a turn here, a turn there. And sometimes your view of things change. Sometimes your view of faith changes, even of religion, even spirituality. And for that, there's somebody that can help you get your car back on the road. And she is a spiritual director with the Izumi Wellsprings Center. And she joins us today, answering lots of questions. And I think we're going to get answers to things that we've been wondering about for a long time. She's Erin King, and so great to have her on the program. Welcome, Erin. How you doing?
Hi, great to be here. I'm coming from Stockton, California, but as you hear me talk, you're going to hear an accent. And it's because I grew up in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So, and some people say, "You from New York?" And I said, "No, from Massachusetts, outside of Boston." So it's a little bit of both ends.
Okay, say the vehicle that has 4 tires and a steering wheel. What is that? Okay. How about this one? If you're going to go to a physician who specializes in the heart, that would be a
Cardiologist.
Say it again. I want to make sure I heard it clear.
Cardiologist.
Okay, so here's the funny thing. My girl is Tina, and she sounds like a New Yorker. She's got this New York accent. And we laugh at it all the time, and it just and I can't stop laughing. And we're both from the New York area, but she sounds the same exact way when she talks about the cardiologist. It's the same. Yeah, you're gonna get the car. I don't know. So I think there's a similarity between New York and Boston.
Well, and people, when again, I've been a preacher and a public speaker, and when I get going, I forget to keep my accent under control. So words like A-T-A-R-T, I say hi. A P-A-R-T-Y, it's a potty. W-A-T-E-R, water, and D-O-G, a dog.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what?
You know what? I think you're a New Yorker. I don't believe you're from Boston. I don't know. We're gonna have to investigate that deeper.
Okay.
Check your credentials. But we do know you are a spiritual director. And for anybody that doesn't know, how do you help people? Let's start right there. I want to get into faith. I want to talk about spirituality and all of that. But how do you help somebody as a spiritual director?
That's a great question. So there are 2 things. People can call what I do spiritual director, and that's in the religious realm. People hear that word, they know what that means. For people who aren't connected to a faith tradition, a spiritual companion, a spiritual friend. So I've been trained in multiple spiritual traditions, and no particular spiritual tradition, no, for people who don't call a faith tradition one, but have spiritual questionings or spiritual doubts. And before I even continue to explain what that is, when I define spirituality as having a relationship with oneself, other, and that can be human, plant, animal, tree, the sky, the universe, and the divine, however you want to understand that. So I see it globally, and as human beings, we have 3 components that makes us human: a physical body, an emotional, mental self, and a spiritual self. And those are my foundational assumptions that come into this. So people seek me out who are asking questions maybe for the first time in their lives. They've never asked the question, who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? And they need some help. Sometimes, or traditionally, people go to their own pastors or faith leaders. But sometimes the questions are so embarrassing to them, or because they don't believe in a God or the one that was defined as they were growing up, and they don't know where to go. Or something bad happened to them. Someone died, a tragedy happened, and they're really angry at whatever divine being possibly be going on. It can't make sense. So someone will come to me, and I first build relationship and I listen. Part of my listening is not only to what a person says, but what they're not saying. And what makes what I do different than like going to therapy or counseling is I'm always asking the question, where is the divine in this? So I may ask that to the person I'm working with, but I have that question in the back of my mind because in my own experience, as well as working with others in grief and counseling. I was a hospice chaplain for over 10 years, as a hospital chaplain. Um, the divine is manifested in many ways, positively, creatively, and beauty and awe and wonder, as well as that nothingness that people can't put a name on, or the darkness. It's like that presence is still there. And so it's helping people find language, helping people find their way towards a relationship or a sense of well-being and a sense of peace. And that's going to look different, whoever's in front of me. Because I lived overseas for 8 years in Tokyo, Japan, I have a broader understanding of spirituality and how to live that out in the world. I come at it as a Christian. I was raised as a Roman Catholic, Irish American in Massachusetts, but my experience is very different. Not only my educational experience, but my personal experience lived in the world. So I have more questions and more opportunities to discover and be curious about what is or what could be.
I
Did I
love
answer the
your,
question?
absolutely. And got lots to say here and talk about. I love your explanation of spirituality, where it's a relationship with something. I call it a deeper relationship, whatever
Exactly.
you want it to be. And I got to share with you, and I'm always very, very transparent here. You said Tokyo, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to leave for Tokyo tomorrow.
You're kidding.
I am not.
Wow.
I was going to take a trip with my son. He's
Uh-huh.
16, loves the
Mm-hmm.
culture. Uh, this is going to be weird, but I am now guided by my gut. And there was one small reason why it might not be the best time to go, but that wasn't a big enough reason not to go.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I thought about it, and it's already booked. I already canceled it, but something kept telling me don't go. And I don't
Huh.
have that answer. I don't know what that is, but it
Right.
was weighing heavy in my gut. And I, asked Divine anywhere, give me the answer. I didn't get it, but I did get that feeling just every time I thought about it. It's like, not the right time to go. Maybe it will be
Mm-hmm.
revealed at some point. And I
Right.
said, and he was, he was upset, but I said, let's let's plan it again. And he's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have the time this time. I'm working over the summer. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. It's not that I don't want to go, but right now something is saying no, don't go. And for the first, I mean, major thing here. And for the first time, I truly listened and respected it and said, I'm not going to go. There's, and I just told him it's not the right time, and he's
Right.
okay with it.
Right.
But
And so if you were sitting with me, I would say that's the divine answering you, that your gut is the divine presence. And again, I believe, our spirit selves are kind of aligned with our intuitive right brain cells, not cells. And so the more open we are to touch base with that part of ourselves, the more able we are to receive answers or hunches or intuition hits that go, that's it, that's right. And
yeah,
just like yourself, that was the right answer for you, but it wasn't for your son, that's okay. Again, the divine touches us where we are as individuals, as well as where we are collectively, and when we're in communities too.
yeah. And interestingly, it's a trip that's going to be a lot of work. It really is.
Mhm. Yes, it is.
You know, kind of got loose plans. It's not like we're on a tour or anything. It's like,
Mhm.
fend for yourself, foreign country, never did that before. So I try to factor out me thinking that there's going to be a lot of work, and I did, and it still kept coming back. So I believe when you ask for answers,
Mhm.
you get them if you're open to receiving them. And I could give hours of examples, even in the last 6 months, of very specific signs or answers that I've gotten. And I honestly, I don't pray to God. I
Mhm.
just, universe, I need something right now, or my
Yep.
mom, who passed
Yep.
4 years ago. And some people say, and I have lots of friends who are spiritual. Oh, well, that's, God speaking through her, or vice versa. But very specific. So I really believe that if you want an
Mhm.
answer, ask for it.
Yes.
Might not be the answer you want. That's the only thing.
Right.
Got to be open to that.
Right. Well, and I'm one of these believers too. I don't even know if believer is the right word, that our work as a human is to be attentive to how the divine works in our lives or manifests in our life right where we are. And so my work as Erin King is, where's God present today? How can I see the presence? And it
Mm,
may have been, and I believe it was in the bluebird who came to the blue jay who came to my feeder this morning. It was in a song that comes on my Pandora feed. It's like you saying something about your mom's like, oh yeah, my mom too. It's all those pieces that are a way to saying the spirit world is active and saying we're here with you. Pay
mhm,
attention.
mhm.
And I
Uh,
think people's sense of well-being grows when they're aware they're not alone in the world, that the spiritual world is working with them here on earth at the same time.
yeah,
So no
I
matter
believe it
what's
too.
going on. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned a song, and I've shared this before, but it's the right time for me to share it. 2 weeks ago, I needed an answer to
Mhm.
something personal going on, and I knew there was an answer,
Uh-huh.
but I just don't know what the answer is. And I got to the
Mhm.
point, I'm driving in my car, and I said, "Universe, give me an answer. I
Mhm.
need you to give me an answer, please. I know there's an answer here, and it'll help somebody else. I need to get this answer.
Right.
Ongoing situation." So that was in my car, and all of a sudden, you
Uh-huh.
mentioned music. Downloaded,
Yeah.
dropped in my head was "Let It Be" by the Beatles,
Ah, that's a
and
good one.
and
Yes.
I'm hearing in my mind, and I'm been a disc jockey for since I was 17. Music's in
Right.
my life, and I'm hearing
Right.
"There Will Be an Answer, Let It
Hmm.
Be," and then
Hmm.
I'm thinking the beginning of the song, Paul McCartney sings, "When I'm in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me."
That's right.
It's
Yep.
not about religion;
Mm-mm.
it's about his mom,
Hmm.
Mary, who passed when he was 14. My mom's
Hmm.
name was Rosemary.
Ah.
So 30 minutes later, I get here,
Hmm.
phone rings.
Hmm.
It was the answer.
Wow. Isn't
It
that cool when
was, it
it
was,
happens?
oh,
Like when the
it
things
just,
line up, you see it. We call that synchronicity, by the way.
thank you. And I'm not just, people will say, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. I give tons of other examples. What are the chances that I got the answer that I needed
Exactly.
when I was asking
Exactly.
for it? Literally 30 minutes later, and it was like, oh, that's the reason. Okay, all right, now we can move in this direction, and now we have clarity on what's
That's right.
going on.
Right.
And you know what, it's always been happening, but I know me personally in my journey, I wasn't open to it. I wasn't open to
And
seeing it and hearing it.
exactly. And that is the problem. And I hate using negative words, but problem or challenge, let's say that word, challenge people have in this world. They haven't been taught the skill set of paying attention.
Mm,
And there are multiple ways of paying attention, nor how to express themselves in a creative way. And that's vast too, as opportunities to get in touch with, again, self, other, and the divine.
yeah.
And once you bring those two skills online, it opens up things for people. Awareness, love, compassion, a sense of well-being, like I like who I am. Yes.
Mm,
And people I have found even can experience that when they're going through hard times. And
yeah.
so it's again, it's companioning with people, reminding them in a concrete way, body to body, they're not alone, and reminding them also they have a relationship with the divine if they just open their eyes, ears, minds.
And it's not our fault. It's our society. It's
Yeah, it
it's
is.
it's it's this thing. It's that
Yep.
thing. It's that, we're running a million miles a minute and we can't quiet the noise out. But I know exactly, I figured it out.
Mhm,
What you're saying in that,
mhm,
even going through some pretty heavy challenges in the past couple of years in my life, um, I came to what you just said, and I call it my quiet calm. When I'm
mhm,
concerned about something, related to situations or whatever, it's like, oh boy, how is that going to turn out? It's like, it's going to be okay. It's
mhm.
going to be a quiet calm. It's going to be all
Yeah.
right. Don't worry about it. And
Mhm.
it turns out fine. And it
It
turns
does.
out fine.
That's
What
right.
do you say? What do you say to? Well, you know what? Even before we go there, how
Mhm.
did you come to this journey? Where, as a spiritual director, where did it all begin for you, Erin?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was one of those kids. Now you can imagine I had curly red hair and I was just a live wire, a lot of energy that I would play in the fields behind our house and dance in fields with the flowers and the butterflies. I was just one of those kids. I would make witch's brew out of berries and leaves and that. I just a free spirit, right? So I was always connected to my spirituality in that form, and it became focused as being raised as a Roman Catholic, Irish Roman Catholic. So that was my tradition, which as I got to be a young adult, I moved into Protestantism, so became a member of the United Church of Christ, and then felt called to ministry when I was in my late 20s. And so I went to seminary at Andover Newton Theological School in Newton, Massachusetts. Um, so that's how it led down the lane. But I've always had a prophetic voice. And what that means, I mean, that's religious words, but that means I always challenge what is, whether that's a scripture text, whether that's a theological or a creedal belief. I always question it, always question it. That's just who I am. And so that got me in trouble along the way, as you can imagine. Okay. And I ended up in Tokyo, Japan, and that just opened it up for me that I could see there are other opportunities for spiritual expression that were equally as good as Christianity. And so I'm grounded in the Christian tradition. My tradition isn't any better than another's. It's different. That's it. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I was born in Tokyo, Japan, I might be a Buddhist priest. Who knows, you know? So when that kind of opened up, and then I returned to seminary, I was asking different questions. And I realized that, yes, I could stand firm in my tradition. And I was more interested in helping people find their way spiritually, whether that was in the tradition, like if I'm working in a church, yes, or more broadly, that the tradition was not working for them, then what? Well, there are lots of other spiritual tools out in the world. And so I got to experience those personally. And then I found you're going to laugh, I think. I call it my spiritual tool of creating a mandala. Do you know what a mandala is? It's a circular design. It's a Sanskrit word. You're laughing.
I thought you said $1.
No,
Like
mandala.
$1. I got you.
Mandala.
I got you. Okay. Yep.
So anyway, and that became a spiritual tool in the creating of, not coloring in, but the creating of. And I just kind of went with that. That I did that personally. I would create a mandala every day, every week until I have a repertoire. I mean, years, 30 plus years of mandalas. And I was trained in the Mari to learn how to assess that mandala for a spiritual, psychospiritual tool. So that's one of my tools I bring to the table. And then in this process that I was opening my eyes in my experience, I got trained in how to be a spiritual director, and then also trained in being a chaplain. First for healthcare, and then for hospice.
Wow.
And then in the process, so it was in my Tokyo years that I knew I wanted to do something outside the church, beside the church, not taking the place of, besides, and trying to think, what could I name it? And then I knew I was listening to or reading the Gospel of John 14, where it says Christ is the living water. And water has been always important to me. And that seemed to hit. Living water, yes. So Izumi is a Japanese word meaning inner wellspring, coming from within. So I joined the two words, Izumi, wellspring. What I bring, not only an individual's connection to their inner wellspring, but I also do that in community. That's the other piece that's different than maybe another, like a spiritual director. So if you come in for classes or workshops or retreats with me, it's not only your own spiritual work, but how does that inform and multiply when you're in relationship with others?
Wow. What a journey that you've had. Working as a chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that many times when we deal with grief or the passing of a loved one, it challenges our faith. And
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
You've seen it, you've been there. What do you say to somebody that just says, how could that happen? Maybe it's a sudden passing and it
Mhm,
just hits you like a ton of bricks. And
mhm,
then your faith wanes. Where do
mhm.
you go with that? What do you say to somebody?
That's a loaded question. I can't answer that in 2 minutes, but what I would do is be there with them, talk about what are they feeling right now. I want to know what they think. I'm not here in relation to tell you what to believe or think. I'm here to help you sort it out for yourself. So it's your experience of the grief and what does that bring up for you? And then where does that take you? I think it's okay to question. I think it's okay to get pissed off. How does the divine work when bad things happen? Well, let's sit in that. And then I trust the process that people will work it through, whatever that means. Sometimes it's a short, intense time, other times it takes longer, and that's okay. So I like to use creative techniques to help them pay attention, let's say. Um, and I believe symbols are the language of the soul. And so I'm kind of like a specialist in symbols. And so it's I want to see what symbols arise for the person in front of me and then explore them with them. And so in that process, oftentimes ahas happen, or I didn't think of that before, and that is part of the grief work for someone to move with and through.
What do you say to somebody that may say to you, as a spiritual director, why did God take this person
Mhm.
so sudden? How do you answer that? What's your first thought? I know it's challenging, and sometimes we can't do it in the amount of time that we have. But what do you possibly say?
My first answer is it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It is a mystery and I'm pissed. Um, I don't have an answer, but you know what? Your loved one was dear to you. And I like to imagine that the divine is crying along with you, you know,
Hmm.
um, cares for you, um, wants you to feel a sense of okayness and a time when you don't, you know, yearns for you to feel that love again that you don't have anymore. So that's part of it. It's not the whole thing, but it's the beginning. And like I said, it depends on what's going on for a person. And I don't want to assume I know what that is. For some
Right.
people, with the person dying, even in a quick death, they might be relieved. I'm not going to assume they're not. Another person might be pissed off. I'm not, so that's why it's a relationship. It's I want to hear you, I want to see you. I'm going to ask questions if I hear you're not saying something and I'm wondering, I believe also when I'm with someone that divine is with us in that time. And so I'm paying attention to that as well. So before I meet with someone, I often have some quiet time myself so that I can pay attention because the divine doesn't work always in the concrete that I can see here. Also, there's something numinous going on, and I am sensitive to that, and I can pick that up.
Well, that being said, when somebody is challenged, let's say it's a passing, maybe something sudden, we'll go there, whatever. Do you think there's a plan? Do you think there's a bigger picture and it's part of the plan? Then, of course, we don't want to hear that at that moment. We can't
Mhm.
accept that at that moment. But do you feel that one day we'll all know?
I have wrestled with that question for many years, right? Myself personally and with others. And when you say planned, it's like it's fate, it's predestined, da 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 da. And I'm not sure if I believe it that way, other than I like to imagine we are wet clay on a potter's wheel, and the divine is the potter. And so, just as when you have to create a vessel, you have to push and pull. You try different things, and it doesn't work. There's a crack, and you have to smash it down again and build again. So it's the sense of creative action. It's not just one way in something occurring, there could be multiple ways. And depending on what's happening in the moment will determine what way that course will be. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
So I don't,
absolutely. And
yeah,
I use the clay analogy a lot, to be honest with you, Erin. And it's also, if it's on the potter's wheel, if you move your hand this way, it's going to affect over here. So it's kind of
yeah,
a, synergistic kind of
exactly.
design. I can't believe we're out of time. Like it
Okay.
just, and I wanted to share briefly with you. You mentioned, well, Izumi is the name of what you do,
So
Wellsprings
Izumi Wellsprings, yes,
Center.
yes.
So when I was a kid, and I'm talking like 10 years old, I want to be a syndicated cartoonist. And
Okay.
you brought back a memory because there's a form of painting, Japanese painting called Izumi,
Izumi, yep.
and that's what I did.
Ah,
I
that's
actually took
cool.
lessons and I forgot, and I got to share that with my son. I took lessons for that. And sometimes I would, fight it a little bit. My mother would say,
Yeah,
just do it. He's a great artist. Just do it. Well, I want to draw cartoons,
right.
but you know what? It was beneficial in terms of the painting style. And I
That's great.
vividly remember it. The,
Yeah,
the, the ink, if you will,
yeah,
the paint comes
yep,
off of a stick that you
yep,
rub.
yep.
Um,
I took lessons as well, so
oh, okay.
I paint Sumie myself. So yes.
That is something else. Wow. And it's just that literally I was 10 years old, 11 years old taking those lessons. But wow.
So I have a website. It's izumiwellspring.com that you can go to and see the classes and one-on-one consultations I do. And you can connect with me.
I love it. And if somebody is looking for answers, feels lost
Yes.
even in their
Yep.
faith or their
That's right.
spirituality, I think at one point in our lives, we've been there. If
Yes, I've
if it
been
hasn't
there.
happened already, it's going to at some point. And for that, there's you, to find your
Thank you.
direction again spiritually. Erin, fascinating talking with you. And just you do make things very crystal clear. Sometimes it's a little too deep for the room sometimes, but
Mhm.
not the way you present it. It's just
Okay.
it. And sometimes we are afraid talking to, the priest, the pastor,
I know.
the
Yeah.
rabbi. Uh, I feel very comfortable talking with you, and I think anybody else would.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, until next time, right?
Yes. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.